What is up, everybody? Welcome here to Rockin Robbie. I almost said welcome to Rockin Robbie Live. Welcome here to Pop Culture Philosophers. It's Comics Revisited. That's right. So many shows going on. Juggle me around. Let's see what's going on. Anyway, tonight we're here with a great group of fellas to chat about the Jonathan Hickman book, Pax Romana. We're going to be revisiting this classic book from 2007. And joining me for the show is Verno from the Cerebros.
What up, station ladies and gentle people? What's going on? Thanks for having me back, bro.
Oh, of course, man. It's like we haven't done a show together in so long.
Right.
All right. We also got a friend of mine, and he is also a comic book creator. He's got work out like Over the Ropes from Mad Cave. I'm a big fan of that one. Hellfighter Quinn, Gin Hunter, and some work coming up, especially in the past and coming up for Xenoscope. Welcome, Jay Sandlin Station.
Oh, am I on? Sorry, man. How's it going? Missed you there. Missed you. I missed you a lot in person, actually.
Oh yeah, we were just talking before the show. It's we haven't seen each other since 2019.
Not in
physically,
person.
Not in person. So,
but I think we'll solve that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for being on the show, guys. And we're going to be talking about this fantastic book, in my opinion. And I think this was Verno's first time reading it, right?
Yes, read it twice though, so I could stay true to the Comics Revisited. I revisited it this week. I read it for the first time last month.
Nice, Jay. Did you read this one before, or is this the first time?
So it's been a long time for me. Actually, I was in grad school finishing my master's in history and taking a class on ancient Rome, and used it a little bit in one of my essays on like Roman gladiators and that kind of thing. So it's been a bit, so we're going to revisit it fresh tonight.
Nice. That's awesome. So thank you all for being here. And Jay, real quick, why don't you tell us what's coming up? Because you got a book about to drop in a couple of weeks. So why don't you plug that?
Man, yeah, Xenoscope Tales of Terror Quarterly. Welcome to Nightmare Land, the Halloween special. In short, you got 6 stories, all written by me, 6 short comics in a 72-page volume. They're all at a scary, possessed theme park that's just Disneyland on acid. And all 6 of the stories are different rides at the park. And how that park is, what's really going on in that park.
Yeah, I can't wait to check that one out. That sounds freaking fantastic.
I mean, not just Tales of the Crypt and freak show type stuff.
It's like Shudder. Not just like a horror Halloween anthology, but tied into a theme park. And you said each one is about a different ride.
Yeah, you've got the creepy carousel. You've got like a Pirates of the Caribbean where they're going to be undead Pirates of the Caribbean, and you've got a roller coaster to hell, and you even got some creepy candy apples. But we've got 3 amazing covers that are already out. By some great artists. You've got Kiri's Goddess of Death in the theme park. You've got the undead zombie pirate captain on a cover. I mean, get all 3 covers if you can, but get the ones you like and check out Gin Hunter. Thanks for mentioning that too. We just released issue 2. Don't know if your comic shop has it yet. Distribution's tough, but if you don't have it, you can get it on Black Box's website, and issues are being added to Comixology as they come behind a month.
Nice. Awesome. Nice. Well, thank you for being here, Jay. I'm really excited to talk about this book, and Brian wanted to be here, but he had something happen, and he's dealing with that, so we just want to keep Brian in our thoughts, everybody, if you will, and throw a silent station out to Brian. But Pax Romana, so I would say last season, but this is weird because it's a monthly live show, even though when we miss a month, so we can say it's twice a month this month, whatever. That's just me rambling, stalling time so I can think about what I want to say. And what I was wanting to say was that we talked about nightly news already, me and Brian, and we got into that one. That was Jonathan Hickman's first book. And now his follow-up is Pax Romana. This is just simply 4 issues. It's like 146 pages or something as a graphic novel. Last week when we had the mishap where we all I almost said we all, like I was passing the buck. When I forgot that the show was supposed to be on that Monday night, hadn't read it yet. I was like, I'll read it real quick. No, this is a super dense book because it's filled with ideas and innovation. So this book is actually written and illustrated by Jonathan Hickman. It's also colored by Jonathan Hickman. It's also lettered by Jonathan Hickman. Every single thing you see on the page is done by Jonathan Hickman. Now, this kind of became a spec book a couple of years ago because somebody picked it up for a TV show idea or a movie, which I think it would actually work. The story would, but the delivery mechanism cannot be replicated. It has to be a comic book. I love this book. I got into Jonathan Hickman during his Fantastic Four run, obviously. I read Fantastic Four. Actually, it was before that, Secret Warriors in the Fantastic Four. Then I found out about Nightly News and Pax Romana, and I had to check those two out. And this one blew me away. This is my favorite Jonathan Hickman book, and after revisiting it, I stand by that statement. This is my favorite book by Jonathan Hickman. It is simple. It's to the point in a very complex and dense way. So, Verno, I want to know, overall, what'd you think about it?
I thought it was one of the coolest things that I've ever read in my life. Like easily. It wasn't perfect. He does this stuff where it's like the characters are kept at a distance, kind of, but conceptually, it like blew my mind. I think I was really glad that, first of all, you asked me if I wanted to do one of these, and you mentioned this by Jonathan Hickman. I'm like, yes, that one. And I hadn't read it, but I'm glad that I had no idea what it was about when I went into it, because just conceptually alone, it blew my mind. And then, as you said, like it being a dense read, there's pages in here that you can just sit and read. You could spend like a half hour just on these 2 pages, just going over the dialogue and the ideas that are presented. There's just so many things to think about in this book. I think it was one of the coolest concepts for a book ever. And I don't want to get, not deep into the art, but the art blew me away. Basically, I went into this thinking like, oh, Hickman's a genius. That's pretty standard. Everybody knows that. And I left this kind of understanding and knowing for a fact that Hickman is a genius, like way further beyond what I understood him to be. Because his early work, like if this is indicative of what Nightly News is like and what Black Monday Murders, and you guys can fill me in on that. If this is what that shit's like at all, then it's so innovative and beyond anything that I've read from him. Everything else seems more tamed and more like editorially told him like, hey, calm this down. Let's let dumb people enjoy your work as well. kind of a thing. But it was amazing. I'm super stoked to be able to do this with you guys for sure.
So having come into Hickman because of the X-Men stuff in particular, like were you noticing like toned down ideas, obviously, and we've heard that a lot of this, he wasn't the first one to kind of do data pages or nothing like that. But what he's using in Pax Romana, where he's like giving us just each issue has just 2 pages of dialogue, right? But it still reads like incredibly well to me. I love the structure of it. So that's got to be wild to look back and see him kind of more unrestrained earlier in his career, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. It reminds me of the data pages in this book are they're more similar to the data pages that we've been getting, or some of them that we've gotten from James Tynion IV in Nice House on the Lake, which reads more like a play. It's really, that's what it is. It's structured like a play is read. Yeah. But
it's also a cheap trick because he's like, I really am a writer, not necessarily an artist, though he comes from advertising and graphic design and stuff like that, which is obvious.
Right.
He's got a sense for that, right? But it was like he does these shortcuts, to kind of like, because can you imagine how long it took him to do this book? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's insane. That's insane to me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's insane is a great word for it. It's a really impressive book, man. I love the hell out of it. And since it wasn't on the rundown, I've been preparing while reading this whole thing. I'm like, this lettering, can't wait to talk about the lettering. I got in trouble for it last time. I didn't focus on the lettering in Morrison's X-Men, but the lettering in this book is crazy and innovative on its own. Like, does he do that for a while in his other? Is this what the books that Hickman's letters, what they're like in other ones?
Well, it's very similar to the Nightly News lettering, but one thing that's carried over is his obsession with lowercase letters. Which you don't typically see a lot in comics. And there was a trend there in the oddies, especially in the Ultimate books, where they were going forward with that.
Okay.
But you're right. The lettering is cool. And he did it himself. And the way it's structured, I don't really necessarily like the block lettering, like where the bubbles are like blocks, right? But I get over it. I think
it's very distinctive and different than anything I've ever read. Like you look at it right away and you're like, oh, that's different. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And just so you know, because of the reaction to everybody on the Morrison New X-Men episode, like I took the lettering bit out because I was like, I guess I can't expect people to pay attention to lettering but me. But Verno, you do now, and I love that.
let me just
sorry,
say
sorry, Justin Birch. Shout out Justin Birch.
I'm bummed that Brian isn't with us for many reasons, but I'm most bummed that I was looking forward to asking Brian what he thought about the music in this book, and just to see his reaction.
Speaking of reactions, Jay, what you think about this?
Well, I want to also emphasize what you said, that it's amazing he did the lettering too, and that's not common. And in the order of comic book production, I know that it's even more uncommon. I will mention that our artist on Gen Hunter, Fabrizio Cosentino, did it that way as well for us. But that being said, I've never done another book that way, that like this one was done. And I think it's really just a matter of taste, Robbie, like what you mentioned with the format. You have this mix of captions, block letters, and then some sequential art, and then graphic art. So for me, I'm just going to, reaction is a rated R episode of Quantum Leap meets Gladiator.
Hell yeah.
And it's but the political intrigue, because of studying the Roman Senate and the roles of a Roman senator with the other, you've got senators, dictators, generals. Then you got into the age of the Republic. Rome began with the age of the 5 kings. It moved into the Republic, and then it was the emperors. So the political aspect of Rome is highly complex, highly frustrating, and often doesn't make a lick of sense, which is why this relates so well to the modern world. So that's how I felt about it, man. That's just how I felt with the... I love Rome. I love learning about Rome, and I just love... I even love the movie Gladiator. So it's a wonderful book. If it's your taste, it's very dense. Don't try to read it in one sitting. It's a good reaction.
I did read it in one sitting this time because I get transfixed by it. Like, now I eat this kind of shit up. First of all, I love historical stuff. If you're not familiar with the book out there, you should definitely read it. But what it is the Vatican, or so time travel is invented in the future, and the Vatican finds out about it. They take the time travel device, kill the scientists so that nobody else can duplicate it, and they decide to send an army and some dudes back into the past to guide history along to strengthen the church. And then they go back in time, and what happens is the head mercenary guy, right, winds up killing the cardinal or whatever that's in charge. And he's like, we're going to use this not to just strengthen the church. We're going to use this to make humanity better. And so then they seek out on this quest to try to use their knowledge of history and the rise of Rome, because that's where they hit. They hit right at the rise of Constantine, right? So, and they use that, and the main character even develops this relationship with him that I found was very profound and a really great like mentor and like just a friendship, a bond that they had. So I really like that. So let's talk about that story. That story, regardless of how it's delivered, I find it fascinating that the Vatican sends these dudes back into time to change history, right? And the framing device of how the story is told is from the new emperor, who's this little kid, being told by, ready for one of those crazy Hickman concepts, a gene pope. Because at a certain point in the past, all the genetic material of all the popes were put together, and they just clone a new pope when the old one dies. Like, bruh, I think they're already doing that, but who knows, right? But I love this story. It's fascinating to me, and it never goes the way you think it's going to go until you get towards the end, and you can kind of see where it goes there. But it also leaves itself open-ended, where there's so much more you could do. So that's why, like, a television show could take this concept and make it really work, but it couldn't deliver it in the way that this one does. It has those info pages that it's not quite as obnoxious as, say, the X-Men, because it's not something that interrupts the story. Literally, the entire book looks like this. It's got a very monochromatic tone to it, very bold character work there. But when you get to those pages where it's just more of the graphic design, more of just the dialogue, it works. And I love the coloring, and it's very simple, but like those moments where it looks like a Argento film right there. And I freaking love it. So I love the story. And yeah, I'm familiar. I love historical fiction. I love Gladiator too. Right, Jay? And
they made a sequel?
And no, my bad. They should, right? I love Gladiator as well. I love Gladiator as well, and I love science. I love science fiction. So to see that kind of blended together in a story that I don't think I've ever seen anything like this, whether on the screen or in a book or in a comic or whatnot. What do you think about the story, Verno?
Go ahead, Jay. If you had something to say, go ahead, bro.
Only that what you said about nothing like it in graphic novels and comics, I don't know. A comparable title, if you like prose, but in the Civil War era, is you might like alternative history writer Harry Turtledove as a novelist who's really defined that genre. One of his books, Guns of the South, you have time-traveling racists who give M16s or it was AK-47s to the Southern rebels.
I've never read that book, but I am familiar with that. I know a lot of people like that stuff. Yeah,
I love that book. Go ahead. Sorry, Verno.
You're good. As far as the story goes, I thought it was like the cool is the word. Like it's just the coolest goddamn story. And I always try to avoid, like, I never want to be like, they should make a movie out of this. They should make a TV, because it's like, I'm a comic book fan. I should just enjoy what we have and enjoy the comic book. But bro, they should make an HBO series out of this. It could be absolutely huge, because the ambition that Hickman had just to go in and be like, all right, I'm going to write a story that shapes the history of the world, of the planet Earth, and every culture and every society, and try and think like the generals and the cardinals in this book. They come up with plans, and like they're like, okay, we should do this first. First, we should get rid of religion, and then we should do this. And then, like, Hickman sat there, you could tell, like, he probably with some buddies and maybe a bong, like, figured out ways to fix human history and shape it in the way that they wanted it to be. So story-wise, extremely cool. I always use Forrest Gump as the example, but I love a good Forrest Gump type story where we kept going back to the dude on the bench. This time it's the Gene Pope and the little kid. What?
Can I make a short confession about Forrest Gump? Because I've been keeping this inside. I went to college with the kid with the guy who played the kid Forrest Gump.
Have you seen what he looks like these days?
He's a great guy, but he came to sit next to me one day, and I just couldn't resist. When he sat down, I just looked at him and said, "Can't sit here." Then he left, and I never saw him again. True story. I agree with you, though, about the challenges they face in Pax Romana with decisions just so terrible. It's hard to really examine them too close, but with science fiction, like you said, Robbie, that it really exposes why this whole endeavor, the plan by the church, the Pope clones, I guess is what we're calling them. Why would this not work? And oh my God, can we stop messing with history? That would scare me to death. but they think they can make this work, and it's just, I would call it maybe Paradox Romana.
Yeah.
Well, it's they mentioned they use the word hubris over and over. It's the hubris of the church and of man himself to think that they could break the go beyond nature.
Yeah,
like,
and the Pope, who is the one who like basically makes this decision to send this team back. Like, I think the first thing you hear from him, and it's repeated, and when something's repeated in the story, obviously it's important. But then he say like humility. Mm-hmm. It's all about humility. We have to have humility, and we'll get to the theme a little bit later. But that's obviously a big key into what Hickman's trying to present here. Because they are, and I love those philosophical discussions that they have, like the Pope and the bishops and the cardinals, and then even what's his name? It's Nicholas
Chase.
I keep wanting to go Nicolas Cage because he should play that character. By the way, like how cool would that be? But
all right, guys, we're gonna have to take the Eternal Army now. Get the Eternal Army to just like we're gonna fuck these guys up, man. We're gonna fuck them all up. Our Eternal Army.
That's a really good impersonation, Jay.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you.
For real. But not, I love even that he and his people, they have those discussions. So it's showing you that even in the elite kind of mode where we're talking about the Pope and all those people, and this is before the Gene Popes and everything, right? This is before the time change. And yeah, you get that timeline, But I mean, I bet Verno was like, bruh, the moment they showed the timeline, and you realize how to read it later on. And then at the end, like, there's so much to this world. Anyway, so they go back, they completely change history. And the big reveal is that the kid who's the new emperor and is being told the story, because every time there's a new emperor, they got to be told the secret history of Rome, right? And so he tells them the story. And then at the end, the big gut punch is that you find out they are only in the year like 1400. Right. And they got spaceships. They colonized Mars. That's another thing. Right. Hickman's like, I'm on my way out, X-Men. Here you go. What if they terraform Mars? Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's got that punch where you're like, holy crap, it kind of works, but it also shows like how the terrible things that have to happen and the falling apart of human nature and human desire and how that throws everything out of whack. But at the same time, obviously with the early advancement of technology, it led to a more enlightened age, albeit kind of more of a theocracy. But at the same time, it was allowing more. I know Hickman really likes Revelation because East of West is an interpretation of the book of Revelation. So like, it's really interesting because I think some parts are there too, as far as that goes. What do you think about the story, Jay?
Well, I mean, if you're you just hit on a few things that sent my mind spinning a bit, but I see how in the Eternal Army, it's like the leaders and their internal struggles, and what you were saying about the questions of what might this say about humanity if in 1400 these things happened, we colonized Mars, which, I mean, are we going to fix our own planet first? When's that going to happen?
Well, ideally, all we got to do is send some Catholics back in time with some guns and a warehouse full of weapons, right?
Get out of it, Elon.
Yeah, that's a scary thing. You asked about theocracy. It made me just think in my mind that even in our timeline, the prime timeline, was Rome already a theocracy at that point? Because, you know, the gods were a part of their everyday life. It was a polytheistic faith that when you get to Constantine and he makes the Edict of Milan in the AD 300s and says, we Christians now. And it's like, what? Can we still go worship these gods? Maybe, yes, no. For a while, sure, you could worship any god you wanted to. And then people say, maybe you just need to worship our gods. And I think that's where a lot of things tend to go wrong. But of course, now Constantine, the city that he named after himself, Constantinople, is modern-day Istanbul, one of the largest Muslim centers in the world.
And now I've got a They Might Be Giants song stuck in my head.
So I just think that the kind of structures that we allow to dictate the parameters of our life, what is the place of politics, the church? Are they even separate anymore? Are they all connected? I don't know, but it's a great comic. Some people say maybe it's overblown, it's overhyped. And I think if you go into it expecting this amazing story, go in for any comic you read with no expectations. Mm-hmm. Eat pizza, read comics, just like they say in the title. Maybe you balance out a few other things in between that. But if you're on the Ninja Turtle diet, that's cool too.
Yeah, that's Michelangelo's diet right there, bro.
Yeah, bro.
No, it's a really cool story, and I love that it tackles those questions. Like they realize, because at a time like Rome, they did centralize, and it did become a theocracy, right? But they absorbed in these other rituals and ideas, like a lot of stuff that we still celebrate today in a secular scenario is pieced together from some of these pagan holidays and rituals because of what Constantine did when he united the known world at the time, whatever. And I love how this book, we don't even know what happened in Africa. You can give us another whole book about what dude did when he went down to Africa, right? Because then the fraction, the faction splits, and you have like the one lady that goes up and becomes Britain, and she gets swallowed up by Rome, and then you have the Africa, and Africa's this like, it's like, what if Wakanda was all of Africa? And they're more advanced than Europe is in this world by the end of it, which is really cool to me. So I really like that idea. I love the story. I think it's amazing. I love the questions. it supposes. So talking about the artwork, the style, let's just say the style and the composition and the lettering, right? This is obviously Hickman is not the best comic book artist. Okay. And you're not going to, he's pretty dope. Now you're not going to get Jim Lee, Neil Adams, John Buscema, John Byrne, Greg Capullo, Todd McFarlane. You're not going to get that in this book. This book has a very striking and bold graphic design sense to it that you can pick it up on Hickman's mainstream stuff. You can see the design, but if you've read most of his indie stuff, you kind of get this, but it's even more out there. He's able, though, to give us these kind of stagnant, stilted images, right? But make them flow through the design of the page, the coloring, the way it's just monochromatic, or sometimes it's duochromatic, and it just pops. And the way that he's going back and forth between different ways to tell this story, just like Mike Huddleston does with his artwork in Decorum, right? Like, wow. It just blows my mind. Hickman has always wanted to do something like this. You can see it in the technique that he wanted to do something where each scene is framed in a different way to tell the story that's very appropriately suited. Would you rather have 20 pages of talking heads? Or would you rather just have 2 pages of really intense and kinetic dialogue that you can read through like it's a play? What do you think about the artwork? What do you think about the way it's put together, Verno?
I thought it was super impressive. Like this is my introduction to Hickman. There's a ton of really heavy blacks. As you said, it's not the most detailed thing, but the way that he does the shading with this really interesting, like circular little like lines that he's doing, that he does that very consistently throughout the whole book. It's like the only shading you get is either full black or these little circles. And it's, it's nothing overly impressive, but it just adds this really unique aesthetic to the whole thing. And then just to know that this, if there was a different colorist name on here, but yeah, cool colors, but just to know that Hickman did it all just makes it like more impressive to me. Like that this dude took the time to learn every little bit of his craft and is able to do it on his own. It's just, it's just super damn cool. And I liked it better the second time I read it. The first time I was like, okay, he's just doing enough to get by. Like this is, as you said, Jay, there's not a lot of sequential storytelling. There's more just one dude on a page, another dude with them, and a bunch of words. You know what I mean? But it's still like, I'm impressed by it. And I liked it a lot more the second time, especially the coloring. I thought it was really impressive to know that it's Jonathan Hickman that did it is really cool to me.
Yeah, it's crazy that even without like a kinetic mode of sequential storytelling, something like an Eisner or a Miller or a Romita Jr., right? Or even a Romita Sr. So you don't have that here, but he's using the whole thing to craft an experience that is very dynamic, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like when we were talking about Suspiria Friday night on Horror Fest for PCP Movie Night. It's not so much a cohesive narrative, which this is a cohesive narrative, but like Suspiria is not so much like a cohesive movie that you watch and it's not conventional whatsoever. Neither is Pax Romana. It's an experience, though. This is something that every bit works together to wash over an experience. And it gives him a little bit more weight going in and understanding how to write a script for an artist. You know what I'm saying? And how to have that collaboration process. He has genuine input into it. And I also just love the idea that I feel like Hickman one day was like, I want to make comics. Artists are expensive or they don't hit their deadlines. Fuck it, I'll do it myself. Right. And I get the same thing from Bendis. Early Bendis work, Jinx, Goldfish, Torso, Fire. When he was doing the artwork himself, you felt like it wasn't quite. It's not like what you're expecting as like far as like the state of the art of comic book art, but it's always going to be innovative when something like that happens, especially when you have talents like Hickman and Bendis both in their early days trying to already think about how to innovate in this industry. What do you think about the technique you use, Jay, and the artwork?
Art is just that. It's subjective. So let's put that out front. But man, I would say with the artwork and the coloring, the style to me works, and you get caught up in the beginning in feeling a little overwhelmed with some details, like you're looking at maybe an autopsy, and then the rest of the book, the autopsy plays back in reverse, and you see why all those cuts and changes were made, and you really get into it. But the visuals had a combination of heavy shadow, the negative space with blocks of color that I found very emotive, which is really, at the end of the day, in sequential art, you want your coloring to express the emotion. I drive some colorists crazy when, and especially this happened a lot, Robbie, and Over the Ropes, and I'm glad you liked it. Our awesome colorist, Francesco, I would probably drive them a little crazy because I'd be like, now, a title belt should not be this color. A wrestling title belt has a black strap with gold plates. And he probably just wants to start flinging stuff at me and be like, that's the emotion. And I'm like, I know, but it's still hot pink. and this isn't, and I'm sorry, bro, this isn't Glow, but you're so talented, and we work together and find something that suits the publisher, the editor, and it's a collaboration. What Hickman has here that's different is he's the sole proprietor of this comic business. And that is not a job I envy. So I'm going to say that I would, as someone who can't draw stick figures, but loves to tell artists what to do, I would just say my hat is tipped. We salute you, because if I had to do any of that, I'd hate for you guys to talk about me on that show if I did all these steps. It's just amazing to me. Just knowing how you put this together, it with a team.
Yeah.
Him doing this alone really bears acknowledgement and recognition.
Yeah, absolutely. Great way to put it. This book astounds me. I watch it. I look at it. I'm like, he must have invented time travel to go back in time and be able to do this, because it feels like it would take someone 20 years to do all of this. You know,
right.
Like when we talk about comics. Yeah, when we talk about comics, there's that whole line, you know, there's the editors, there's the publishers, but there's the writers, there's the artists, and sometimes it's a penciler and an inker, and it's a team, and sometimes there's a colorist, right? For most times there's a colorist, right? There's the letterer, there's the people that put it together, there's the design, sometimes that's a letterer, sometimes it's not. And like the fact that Hickman this came out of his head onto the page and it's delivered to us like this, and it's like a perfect setup where you read it and you're like, when I say this is one of the most Hickman of Hickman books, like this, y'all know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this style, this technique that it may be cribbed a little bit from some stuff in the past, but he has made it his own.
Right.
And he's been able to successfully use it in mainstream franchises because he's able to tone it down just enough, I guess. You know what I'm saying? But then, yeah, bro, read Black Monday Murders, because I feel like Hickman unearthed too many secrets about the power of money. And I feel like I'm in, like, his life's in danger. And maybe that's not why the book is so freaking late. But anyway,
I wanted to ask you that. Should I read Black Monday Murders? Because you always seem upset that he never finished it. So I'm always like, well, fuck, it's not finished. Do I want to jump into this book that I know I'm going to get left blue balling on? Is it still worth a read?
Allegedly, we're getting it. You know, we're getting more. You know, I mean, I'm sure one day we'll get it. You know, I don't know. Dying of the Dead, I don't think is finished. And then Black Monday Murders hasn't finished. But maybe it's because Pax Romana you can do, but don't do 5 Pax Romanas at the same time.
Well, the other thing I was going to ask,
not if you want to live. Not if you want to live.
Do you think this book was so short because Hickman did it all himself? Like, I feel like this book at the end of it, it's just like, it leaves me a little bit hanging, like, oh God, I wanted more. That's it. Like, it feels like it could have went on like a lot longer.
I think it's perfectly crafted. I think it's exactly as long as it needs to be, because he honestly, and I hope Nick is still here, and if he's not, this is for him. Pax Romana is a simple story told in a complex way, right? It's a story about dudes that go back in time and they try to change it, and then you know, whatever. But like, it provides these questions. But I would say, yeah, definitely read Black Monday Murders, because we got 2 volumes. There's going to be more. Dying of the Dead will complete one day, right? But there's the thing that bothers me the most is there's projects that we're still waiting for. Frontier was supposed to be a book where it was like Hickman's version of Star Trek, but Star Trek gone wrong. Manhattan Projects, there's still a lot dangling out there. That book completed and concluded, but there was the promise of miniseries, and they did one, and then we haven't got anything else.
X-Men?
I don't want to get started on X-Men. I feel like I've been enough X-Men this week.
Well, I'm just saying it seems to be like it kind of goes to show like Hickman is the type where he'll just be doing something. He'll be all fucking doing it. But all right, I'll move on. Change directions. I'm going to go somewhere else. Sorry, fans.
He's the Guillermo del Toro of comic books then, right? Like how many times have I heard of a project that Guillermo's going to do that never happens? At the Mountains of Madness. Nope, never happened. Frankenstein. Nope, never happened. So yeah, it sucks. Like there was a book he solicited like in 2012 or something called Feel Better Now. It was supposed to be a graphic novel written and illustrated by him. He hasn't done anything that he's illustrated since Pax Romana. He just did Nightly News and Pax Romana. Nightly News, by the way, is 6 issues, and it's different. It's not so much sci-fi. It's way more like political and like current events and stuff, but it's really freaking worth it.
I started that. It seemed very, very, very cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. After you read it, you should check out our Comics Revisited.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
All right, so he's able to pack this. It's a great story, I think. It's really cool. It's delivered in a very interesting way, and it's astounding that it's one dude doing it. What do you think the book's trying to say? Or at least, what is it saying to you, Verno? What's the theme?
I can't believe we're already there. I've been pondering this for a while. I think it says a lot. First of all, I'm not nearly smart enough to say what this book is saying in totality, but for me, as you said, it says like the main message I get from it, or one of the main messages I get, is that if you know how to do violence, you will do well. Violence is it's the trump card. So you can have all the plans that you have in the world, but if I am bigger and badder than you and I can come up and shoot you in the head, and now I can take your plans and do them, that's a big part of it, man. That's at least a big part of what he's saying to me. And the other huge part is that you can't beat human nature. Like we're never going to get beyond the abilities of humanity. I think a big part of that, and why I say that, is there's a section in the book where they bring in, I guess I got to call him Constantine and not Constantine, because you guys seem like you fucking know what you're talking about.
I was just following Robbie, and I have a master's in history, and I'm like, I guess it's I learned it in Alabama classrooms. He's Constantine.
Yeah, I prefer
Constantine saw him across and said, "We all gonna start worshiping Jesus, and that's why we don't pray to Zeus no more."
I right on the money there, by the way, Jay.
Yeah, we're gonna need 10% of that money now. I'm right on.
You got it. No, I said Constantine because I prefer Constantine. Same thing with John Constantine. Right. But I just recently heard, so in the Sandman Audible, they say Constantine, and I remember that.
You know who else, Robbie? I don't mean to interrupt. You know who else says Constantine though?
Who?
Paul fucking Jenkins says Constantine.
Well, it's because he's British.
Well, it's because he's British and he writes Constantine. I've had a beer with Paul Jenkins in Atlanta, Georgia, and I believe that he might be Constantine.
He might be.
Shout out to Paul in Meta Studios because he is
Paul's
amazing.
super cool.
I miss Paul.
I've met Paul before. Paul's super cool dude.
Oh yeah.
So Neil Gaiman says, well, in the UK we say Constantine, and I was like, well, they're closer to Istanbul than I am. So I'll just go with that tonight. That's what I decided to do.
Don't worry. I stopped worrying about that a while ago because my, we're from the South, man. This Southern speak, people don't know what we're saying most of the time.
Right.
And they
Hell yeah, man.
don't want to hear what we're saying a lot of the time.
Hell yeah, man. You'll bum him. He's coming here now. Verno, what do you think?
I'll think a lot. Okay. So back to what I was saying. Okay. There's a section in the story where Robbie, like you said earlier, they send these people back. They send back military people. They send back religious people. Instantly, the military people say, all right, we're going to kill the religious people and we're going to move forward from here. So that's the violent part of it.
The main guy, remember, is devout, right? That's the important thing, is that the main military guy, the Nicolas Cage guy, right? He's devout. Right?
No. What his thing is, because the cardinal that he kills, Pepe Belle, his main thing, and the church's main reason for sending them back there is to prop up the church. The Nicholas Chase, General Chase, he kills him. He says, fuck the church. Let's prop up humanity. Yeah, which is right. Interesting. But he uses the church.
Well, how the idea, well, this is really cool, right? Okay. So the idea that a true faith eventually turns into a faith in humanity, which is like humanism, right? That we believe that we could do it, right? But of course, he had to assert control over that in order to make it happen. Which throws back to your point: can you deny human nature? And then the violence thing, that's disconnected for me, right?
Right.
Because human nature is that violence. That is the way we get our point across. That is the way we do it. And by the end of the book, I feel like we're left with this idea of they got to the point where humanity has progressed, but at what cost? And was it worth it? And is there another way? And I feel like Hickman's got a very nihilistic opinion on it. No, there's not.
I'm left at here. Let me finish my point. Then I'll continue. But okay, there's the point where we have Constantine, which is super interesting. First of all, we go back and they're like, okay, how do we take over the world? Well, this dude already did it. Let's just let him do it. Let's use this dude's ambition and his ability to rule to do it for us. And then but they can't get beyond human nature, because human nature is they're doing this thing. They're going to world build. That's not a human thing to do. Humans, they connect with other people, and they have loyalty and compassion. And
then shit happens, right?
General Chase becomes loyal, and he develops passion or compassion towards Constantine. So he starts to kind of go along with kind of what Constantine wants. That's why they put in his son, and, this whole complicated thing. So those are the big things that I took away, and that fucks the whole plan up. So then it gets out of control, and they're no longer able to like guide human history the way that they wanted. So there's too many variables, but that's what I take from it. You can't avoid human nature, loyalty, compassion, and violence.
No, that's right on. I mean, that is right on, right? And it's something I'm going to touch on in a minute here, but like that is right on. But still remember, like they do achieve success, but just not in quite the way they envisioned. But they also lead to I guess you could, what do you consider success? I guess
that's what I'm saying.
That's another thing, right?
The end of the book, I'm not sure. Like, should we be happy about it? The kid seems happy. Like, I don't know. Is this?
I was trying to figure out how to vocalize that, right? How to but you're right. That's exactly it. Like they hit this level where humanity has gone so far by the 13th, 14th century, but is it really worth it?
Yeah.
Because of what has had to happen. So that's interesting. Jay, I want to know, what do you think this book's saying to you?
We've talked about the page numbers, the art, the lettering, the colors, and the story. Did you stop to see the title is Pax Romana in the South, Pax Romana. In Latin, it's Pax Romana in the original Latin, which translates simply to Roman peace. The theme of the book is peace, but no one's idea for peace involves balance. As the Catholic Church believes that peace can come solely through their government and theocracy, whereas the humanists believe their government will be the sole utopia for the earth, and this is the plan. I have lived in both worlds in my life, and I know that finally, after a long time, extremism on both sides will ultimately fail, because balance is the key to finding Pax Romana, Roman peace. So is utopia justifiable? If we could have utopia, is it justifiable by any means? Because can freedom of choice really exist in any utopia?
Yeah.
That is my question. I offer no answers tonight.
Yeah, right. And this is a question that's brought up by like Aldous Huxley and other writers, like Brave New World, for instance. Like,
okay, so for other writers, Michael Crichton and his book Timeline, I began with kind of a mashup.
Oh, what's his name from Fast and Furious, man? Hell yeah.
Yeah, and Gerard Butler. But Michael Crichton Timeline, the book is much better. Go check it out. But this story is a little bit of Timeline meets Valiant Comics Exo Man of War. When you start, because Exo Man of War starts out maybe roughly the same era. I can't recall.
Yeah,
Let's
it's the
just say-
barbarian ages because they're preparing for it, right? In the book, right? They're talking about the barbarian tribes that are going to, So,
And the tribe that the Man of War comes from is picked up by aliens, and he time travels the old-fashioned way and blah, blah. This is a lot like a reverse of that, where we take us from the future, and you've got the modern sci-fi, hard sci-fi. You've got Star Trek, Eternal Army, evil Terran universe Marines running around ancient Rome. And I love it. But the fact is, I think what Hickman was trying to say is that it doesn't matter the time, era, or technology. There can be no utopia without balance.
I think Hickman, I doubt Hickman believes in utopia in the least bit. That's just my take. Hickman, way too fucking smart. That's just the way I look at it. I don't think he believes in a utopia. I think he understands human nature, and he proves that in this book, like a lot. You know what I mean? I don't believe in utopia. Me personally, you know what I mean? I don't believe that we could ever just live all peacefully. We're gonna have to struggle in order to do shit. Once we have utopia, then we're fucked. That's the way I look at it. I bet Hickman looks at it like that. I'm just guessing.
Well, I think that's part of the point too, is that, Jay was saying that we can't have utopia without balance. And that means, and here's, I'll go ahead and jump into mine. Cause I'm so proud of you two. Like usually I feel like I have something.
Very good thoughts.
You bring me out with this smart ass dude with history knowledge and stuff. Well, I got to like
I feel like I always have something profound to say I always wait till the end and try to capture it all together. Y'all captured it. Yeah. This is what I wrote down. So first of all, like, is humanity capable of utopia? Right. That's to me, one of the first questions that's pondered here. And I feel like it's exactly what you guys said. I feel like Hickman doesn't think we can. And tying it into what Jay said, I feel like he thinks we can't because we can't maintain that balance. Mm-hmm. This is not a utopian society. It is kind of regulated by one vision, by one, right? And even though they do get into the idea of like, we'll dismantle religion, people can worship what they want, but they said we eventually want to tie all that back into one, right? But the ultimate thing at the end is that at the end of everything, after the timeline, right? Not at the end of the actual story, but after the timeline, we realize there's just Rome and there's Africa, right? And by the way, we don't know what's going on in the other corners of the world in this, right? And that's showing that they have to have a balance between the two. They overtake Britain, but they don't overtake Africa because there's the balance. And they realize eventually there has to be a balance. Even though the Gene Pope, talking to the emperor, is talking about how they still have this lust to overtake and this human desire that we have. And humanism is a wonderful thought. And I used to consider myself a humanist. Sometimes you got to throw a little bit of idealism into it, but sometimes you got to throw a lot of realism into it as well. And you got to realize that most people, I think most of the people in my world are great. But like, for instance, we just had at my job, we just caught a thief who we went back in the tapes and caught I don't want to get too much into that, but I'm just today was one of those moments where I was like,
wow, sorry, man.
Today was one of those moments where like, people fucking suck, bruh. You know what I'm saying? And so like, I think that's the point. It's like, those are, oh, no problem, man. We're good. We got insurance. We got the arm of the law behind us.
I'm just sorry to hear that even happen, though. I just because I love your comic shop, The Deep Comics and Games, is as much of a church, in my opinion, as any of the Zeus temples of the Catholic shrines. It's a place where people gather and they communicate through these stories. And like you and I are doing here, learning lessons. I'm sorry you don't get to be tax-free. But it's the Church of the Deep as far as I'm concerned. I hope, and I can't wait to make a return soon. I hope we can work that out, buddy.
Well, we gotta figure out a way to get comic shops classified as a religion, as a church, right? Then maybe we can get tax-free.
I know some attorneys. I don't think it would be that hard.
Yeah,
to be honest, I don't think it would be hard.
I appreciate that, but the point is, shoplifting sucks, right? And it happens, right? People being shitty to each other sucks, but it happens, right? And so then I also wrote down it is diving into the idea of what a theocracy is. because we've seen it already on this world. And it's showing that even no matter the age or the era or the technology, like Jay said, it can happen. And you got to be wary of it. And there's another book I think that really
we have theocracies today.
Well, we do, right?
We
and
do
I think
today.
A great book that's a recent sci-fi, one of my favorites. It was my number one book of 2019, if I remember correctly. Little Bird by Darcy Van Polgeest. We got to get on this show soon. Actually, I forgot about that. He's down to join us. We got to get that going. Little Bird's about like a theocracy, and more so in the Americas. But so there's that. But the one nugget that like struck out to me the most was there's a moment where Nicolas Cage, it's Chase, right? Where he says, I have always wanted to be a patriot, but my country wouldn't let that happen. I've always wanted to be spiritual, but my religion wouldn't let that happen. That is such a profound statement that I don't know Jonathan Hickman personally, but knowing from his work, I think he's probably got a nihilistic streak in him. Okay. And I feel like at one point he said, I wanted to be the perfect American, but this country just doesn't allow that. And I wanted to be the perfect spiritual person, but my religion just doesn't allow it. And it shows you how systems become corrupted and become methods of control over actual transformative change. Being a patriot and being a spiritual person should be an aspiration, but these institutions don't really allow, like I that hit me so freaking hard, y'all, because I wanted to be a preacher. I wanted to be a man of God. I wanted to be a good American. I want to do all that. And this fucking country and that religion grounded me to the fucking dirt. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why I love Pax Romana, it may be nihilistic. It may be dire in its circumstance and what it's trying to say about humanity, that we could only ever achieve peace if only one vision is attained, right? That to me is a warning. And that means that like somebody else, like Hickman, went through a journey that I went through, and we're all trying to figure it out together. And sometimes we got to look at the despair to understand how to go beyond that and bring it up. And that to me, I put a bookmark in the moment. It is freaking amazing. It's all my life I've sought to be a spiritual person. But like my country, my religion has prevented me from being the man I want to be. That shit hits me hard. And I think that ultimately is the one thing that this book is about.
Hells yeah. Hickman's good for that. Like where there's so many lines in this book that you could just sit and dwell on for a lifetime and just think about like, what the hell was he saying? And what does that mean to me? Yeah. Hell yeah, man.
Yeah. And now when you read X-Men and you read Pax Romana, now you understand my pain
Right.
of the potential that we had. So let's talk about the legacy. Obviously, Nightly News, Pax Romana, that got Hickman his start. It got him noticed. People responded to it, whether it was negative or positive. People were talking about Jonathan Hickman. Bendis noticed him, brought him over into the fold at Marvel. They did Secret Warriors together for the first 6 issues, and then Hickman took over and did a really great story involving S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra that Winter Soldier took. Okay, so the big twist in Winter Soldier that Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. were one and the same, that comes from Jonathan Hickman's Secret Warriors. Yeah. So there you go. Jonathan Hickman has influenced more of the MCU than people realize.
Right. That's what I hear. I didn't know that, though. It's cool.
Oh, absolutely. So then that goes into his Fantastic Four run. His Fantastic Four run is the 3rd best Fantastic Four run in history. He's literally behind Kirby, Lee, and Byrne. That's really good company to be in. And right behind him for me is Mike Wieringo and Mark Waid, right? Like that's really good freaking company to be in. He goes on to Avengers and does all that stuff leading to Secret Wars. He goes creator-owned again. He's done other books like Red Mask for Mars, Transhuman. Those books are kind of okay, but I felt like he got his focus back again on Manhattan Projects and East of West. The legacy is this. This made Hickman become noticed. It got him work at Marvel. It got him more creator-owned work. It got him noticed. And he's brought this technique back into comics. Just read an X-Men comic today. It's not the most Hickman-y anymore.
Right.
But the style of it the boldness of it. Jerry Duggan's X-Men's pretty solid right now, and all he's doing is it's like a popcorn version of Hickman, right? What do you think the legacy of this book is, knowing that this is 2007 Hickman? Verno, what do you think?
Well, I wish you would ask me first, because that was pretty much everything that you just said. That's what I was going to say, because really, like, I wasn't there. I don't know like exactly how it impacted, but I wanted to. You have the same trade paperback that I have, and Blair Butler, she writes the intro to it, and in it, this is back in 2000. I think she wrote 2009. She predicts the term Hickman-esque. She's like, I think soon people are going to be saying Hickman-esque. And I love that you said Hickman-y, because I'm a fucking idiot. And that's what I always say. But we use that all the time. Like, it feels like Hickman. This is a kind of a Hickman thing. And, you know, if the legacy is, if this is what put Hickman on the map and got him noticed, that and Nightly News, then this comic not only changed Marvel, and it changed the big two, and it changed the way people write comics. It changed my motherfucking life, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for House of X, Powers of X. That's what brought me into modern comics in a huge way. So Hickman's legacy is bringing me into comics. That's the way I look at it. That's awesome. But for real, it changed comics probably because of the influence and is there someone bigger right now? Like, who would you say, oh, hey, this comic writer, he has a new big project coming out for Marvel. What's a bigger name than Jonathan Hickman right now? Who would get fans more excited? Oh, this dude's writing Batman. Guess what? It's Jonathan fucking Hickman. Like, is there a bigger name right now that you think would get people more excited to be tied to an IP?
No, I don't think so.
My mom would be excited if I was.
I was going to say, I don't think so, because the excitement level for Hickman being announced for X-Men was higher than if it was Frank Miller.
Right.
Than if it was Chris Claremont returning. And those were big names that are very big game-changing moments in comic book history, Claremont and Miller, right? So Hickman is one of those type. We've had Will Eisner, Carmine Infantino, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, John Buscema, John Romita Jr., John Byrne, Alan Moore, Grant Morrison, Neil Gaiman. We go through this list of like the multiple Mount Rushmores of comicdom. Hickman is on there today, bro. Like, I don't think I think he generates more excitement than Bendis does now. He generates more excitement than Brubaker does. He generates more excitement than Morrison does. Now, for me, he's just under Morrison. You announced Grant Morrison on a book about just a fucking toothpick sitting on a fucking ledge for 20 pages. I'm excited as fuck. You know what I'm saying? But like, Hickman is on right underneath that Morrison level for me, for sure. What about you, Jay? And what do you think the legacy of this book and its influential impact on the industry and Hickman's career? What do you think about it?
I have nothing new to add other than instead of Hickman-esque, we should now call it Hickman-y. And if a book is really good and leaves a lasting impression, you just say, like, man, this really left a Hickman-y on my neck. because I've been down, I've been having some good times with this book, so it left a deep Hickman-y. And and again, hey mom, I hope you don't notice it, but I have nothing else to add.
Go put a cold spoon on that Hickman-y, man.
Oh, is that how you do it?
That's what they say.
Yeah.
You used to work at the strip club. You must know, Verno.
Oh yeah. No, the strippers don't care. Like, so what? They're proud of it. They're like,
no, I meant the hickeys you get from strippers. You want to hide those.
And strip clubs are churches as well, so it's all good. You know, Robbie, since there's nothing else to say, man, it stuck out to me. You said that you wanted to be a preacher and felt like you couldn't. And in my eyes, you already are, because all the people who help find those comics, you talk to thousands of people on this show. You could call it pop culture preachers if you wanted to, but I like the name you have.
Yeah, thank you.
God just lets you do it in a different way. That's all, right?
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that another time, but I like that you said that. And I like Hickman-y.
Yeah,
and
I like Hickman-y.
If Nick Cage cannot be a patriot, he can, by God, steal that Declaration of Independence. Give us a damn third national treasure already. Come on.
Nice to wrap that up. Nice to tie that back in together. I really like it.
Sure, why not?
That's the influence, man. And thank you so much, Jay. I really do appreciate that. So, all right. Now we're going to rate the book. So out of 5 possible you digs, you out there in the chat, if you've read Pax Romana, let us know and let us know what you rated out of 5 you digs. Verno, what about you?
I'm going to go 4.5. And I think the biggest flaw to the book, and it's kind of interesting for me, I think if someone that's just read his more modern Big Two stuff, the biggest flaw or the thing that I take out of his writing that it's like some people might look at it as a flaw is his lack of, I don't know about character development. There's this, Hickman does this thing where characters have never been cooler. They've never felt more epic, but you don't feel like you could sit down and hang out with them. And you don't like get to know them. There's this distance. Like this whole book is written from the orbit. You know what I mean? There's this distance to it. So I will say that I think it was brilliant. I love it. We already said all the things we loved about it. Conceptually super cool, super entertaining. Every word was interesting. But that's my only ding on it is there's not, well, not only that, but like we talked about those pages, those data pages that feel like a play. I don't, and this is like the second time I read it. Maybe if I read it a third time, you don't know, you don't really connect to those characters that are going through all that. You get all the ideas that are represented in those conversations, but it's a lot. It's like the biggest example of show don't tell ever. It's the coolest example where it's like, oh no, it kind of works when Hickman shows it doesn't tell. But I'll knock it down to 4.5. Other than that, but I love the hell out of it. Super cool.
All right, 4.5, near perfect for Verno. What about you, Jay?
May I decline to give it a numbered rating because that's just not my thing, and it's just for me. The rating is whatever you get out of it. It's right. I give it 5 out of 5 just because I know that the production and one guy doing all those things, you know, the discipline that would take to still come and produce this story. For me, that's a 10 out of 5, but I'll give it a perfect score because just of the production that had to go into it. And then you also delivered your story. I'll give it a 5 just because and maybe if I have to rank it, I'll say it's an objective 4, knowing nothing else.
I appreciate that. I like how Jay's like, I'm not burning any bridges tonight. What are you talking about?
I have nothing. Actually, it's funny you mentioned because sometimes you have to decide which bridges in life to burn.
I love that you said you wouldn't give it a number and then you gave it a 5 and a 4 somehow.
I hypothetically gave. Okay, let's just go back in time and.
This guy's good. You should write.
I know. All right. You know, that kind of gives me I'll just say it's an average of, we could just say that there's some wavelength in some universe where Jay gave it a 4.5.
Right. I'll take it. I'll take that.
I'm going to give it a 5 because I mentioned that. I mean, I love East of West. This shit right here is like comic book gold. 45 issues of just an intense story that keeps developing. And it's the only long form Hickman story that really delivers as much Hickman-y goodness as I want. And by the way, the Hickman-esque, like I just say this is the most Hickman book you've ever fucking gotten, and that's Decorum, right? And so like just waiting for. By the way, whenever that last issue is, Verno,
it's coming.
You got to let me on.
He put a well. I already got that plan. I was going to talk to you about it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, there you go. Anyway. I'm giving it a 5 though. I still think it's my favorite Hickman book. I would also give East of West a 5, but don't worry, one day we'll cover that on Comics Revisited. So I'm giving it a 5 as well. So 5 from me, 4.5 from Verno, and a 4 and a 5 from different versions of Jay throughout the multiverse. For a PCP average of 4.69, dudes. Right? And then Sin it's a solid 4. I think the story pushes too much into too short of a space. It needed to be longer so we could get into the story itself. That's why I was like, this story could really evolve as a TV series. Because then you don't have to have Hickman spend 20 years going back and forth through time with the time turner from Prisoner of Azkaban trying to get this book done on time in 2007, right?
I know I'm just repeating myself, but I would murder to see a television show or not a movie of this, but a TV show would be so freaking cool. So cool.
It would be cool. All right. And that is the show, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't worry. We got another Comics Revisited coming up. I believe it's October 25th. It's the last Monday in October. And guess what we're covering? Let me, where is it? All right, you ready? You ready? It's Batman The Long Halloween. Come on. It's Halloween time, Batman The Long Halloween. They just did the animated movie. So join us October 25th. I'm pretty sure it is the last Monday in October. Join us for the Long Halloween discussion. That's your homework. That's your book of the month. So there you go. And yes, since like we haven't heard anything from Sci-Fi who optioned Pax Romana, nothing since 2014. That's the thing. Usually a company or a production studio or something will just option the rights so that no one else gets it. It's kind of like Marvel that's paying Chris Claremont as we speak to not write comics.
Well, that makes me nervous that it's Sci-Fi. I don't want Sci-Fi.
Yeah, I don't want Sci-Fi to do this, bro.
At all.
I need HBO Max or something.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I loved Vagrant Queen on Sci-Fi, Deadly Class, and Krypton, but they all ended too early. So
yeah, they don't know how to market it, right?
They know how to make it. So then, with streaming, who knows, right? Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? Vagrant Queen was good on Sci-Fi Channel. It just
loved it. Nobody
was ever going to hear about the show. There was no marketing push for it.
They heard about it from me. I was talking about it all the time.
Yeah.
Nobody.
All right. We are dipping out. We really appreciate you all for being here. Verno, thanks for being here. Why don't you tell us everybody about your channel? What's coming up, brah?
Hells yeah. Well, first of all, I'll tell them what is already up, and you can go check out right now a fantastic conversation with Mr. Rockin Robbie Billups from last week that we broke down Inferno #1. I had Robbie rant on Spider-Man, Nick Spencer's Spider-Man. If you're curious about what the hell happened in Nick Spencer's Spider-Man and what you need to know that came from that going forward to enjoy Spider-Man comics, check that out. Really fun show. The Cerebros are on the YouTubes and on podcasts. Then I do weekly reviews every Wednesday morning, and then conversations with other cool people like Robbie each and every Sunday at 5 p.m. Central Time. The Comic Book Breakdown Show. Ton of fun. Come check it out.
Yeah, that last show was super fun, and there's a link to Verno's channel in the description below. Jay, thank you so much for being here. Tell everybody one more time what you got coming up and what you have in the past.
Very simple, very simple. I do need to say and address that I would love for you to pick up Gen Hunter, the monthly title I have out with Black Box Comics. It is a high fantasy story about a Gen who is a hunter that fell in love with her prey, and she's going to go hunt down all kinds of zombies, evil Gen, and grant crazy wishes. We already mentioned Zenoscope, Halloween, Tales of Terror, 2021 special. That's going to be the 6 horror stories that I wrote for this 72-page volume. Welcome to Nightmare Land. It is one bad theme park. Thank you to everybody who reached out to me about deleting my Twitter. It's gone right now. Don't know when it'll be back, but I am okay. Follow me on Instagram. Listen to episodes of my podcast, Geekopedia, though that's going to be slowing down a bit too. But it's all for the good, and I hope you'll read anything I've written. Peace and will.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, dude.
That's a Green Lantern ring, by the way, everybody. Just got it. Happy late birthday, by the way, Jay.
Thank you, sir. I'll take it when I can get it, right?
Absolutely. All right, PCP Army, we love you. Do your homework. Don't forget, tomorrow night, the 5th anniversary of the Weekly Comic Book Review. We're doing a live edition of the Weekly Comic Book Review with the back chat. So join us for that. And my buddy Nick Barucci from Dynamite just sent me some stuff. I've got some word on the street is that Tony Fleece and Trish Forster did some Red Sonja #2 covers with the stray dogs on it. And I got a non-trade dress and a trade dress to give away tomorrow night. So y'all definitely join us tomorrow night for the Weekly Comic Book Review. What time? I don't know. Depends on when I get done reading my comics. Y'all, calm down. Thank you.